Sean Deveney from the Sporting News, longtime NBA writer, has been at these games, and the intensity should be interesting tonight. And Sean, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We're doing great. Game 5 tonight. Now, obviously, Game 4 was a huge change for the Sixers. T.J. McConnell has been kind of the hero for the last couple of nights. But do you think Boston tonight, Brad Stevens, will now game plan for McConnell, or do they say, look, McConnell will do what he's doing, but we still need to be cognizant of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid?
Yeah, I don't know that they'll necessarily change up their defense that much. I think that they still see Simmons as sort of the key. That if you can have Aaron Baines do the best he can with Joel Embiid and sort of live with that, and then focus the rest of the defense around slowing down Simmons and keeping them out of transition, I think that's still going to be the thrust of their defense here. You have to live with what McConnell's going to do, and certainly I would expect to see some wrinkles, maybe some different rotations in terms of how they defend T.J. McConnell, but I still expect them to have Simmons as sort of the guy that they're really most concerned with that defense.
Strategy for the Sixers. Do you think Boston is content and okay with them entering the ball down in the post to Joel Embiid? Is that something the Celtics like?
Yeah, they do, and the reason for that is pretty clear. It makes them a half-court team. It makes them slow down. If you're going to give it to Embiid and he's going to shoot 50%, that means he's missing 50%. It means that rather than getting up and down and playing that sort of freewheeling style that I think the Sixers really got better and better with as the season went on, and certainly the way they looked in that Miami series, that's what Brad Stevens wants to avoid. So if dumping it into Embiid, when he gets the ball, it's going to take a few seconds. He's going to have to gather himself. He's going to have to figure out what he's going to do, what his move is, and all that takes time. So the more time that they're spending doing that, the happier the Celtics are, and then they'll just live with the results. If he shoots 80%, then all right, they're going to lose, but they're counting on him shooting 50% or below, and sort of living with slowing down the pace that way.
Yeah, Sean, one thing in this series, too, is the Sixers have not shot very well in any of the games. What are the Celtics a little concerned that one of these games might lead to them starting to get pretty hot?
Yeah, I think there would have to be. Just that. Look, when you look at teams that defend the perimeter well, they certainly have an impact, and the Celtics do that. They certainly have an impact on what the 3-point percentage is that the other team is shooting. But every team gets wide open threes. That's part of the deal, is that even wide open threes, you're probably going to shoot 40-45% at best on, and so within every team's defense in terms of that 3-point shooting defense, there's a measure of luck. If they're not making shots, then it's going to make your perimeter defense look a little bit better. And I think that's been the case to an extent with the Celtics here. Is that yes, they're a very good perimeter defensive team, and they're very good at running you off the 3-point line and making sure certain guys don't get those shots. But in the end, there is an element of luck, and I think the Celtics have been a little lucky in terms of that perimeter defense, and that's something that you always worry that the odds are going to catch up with you. And certainly, the longer the series goes, the more likely you're going to kind of regress to the mean. You're gonna go back to what to what the average is, yeah. And right now the average is so weighted in the favor of the Celtics that they don't want to mess around too much with that creeping back the other direction.
Yeah, Sean. Ben Simmons had 19 points, 13 rebounds. No one's really talking about him. If he did that during the regular season, he's typically in the A block of the news. Brett Brown had said he needs to make his stars again. I think he made Ben the star by taking the spotlight off of him a little bit. He brings McConnell in, and no one's talking about Ben. But what did you see from Ben Simmons that, if you're a Sixer fan, you might think that he is ready to contribute a little bit more and be a bigger reason why this team can win?
Yeah, I thought that he was more confident. And actually, if you watch the game from start to finish, I went back and watched it yesterday. I think he got more confident as that game went on. That he did look shaky in the beginning, and I think that as other guys started making shots, I think that he himself got a little more comfortable and felt less pressure. So I do think that was a factor there. And McConnell obviously making the shots that he was, but I think Saric as well. I think what he was able to do. The Celtics have really gambled with him in terms of how they've guarded him and sort of figured that he's going to be a guy that they'll let get free and hope that he doesn't. Well, it caught up to them and he hurt them there in Game 4. So I thought that as those guys, as McConnell and Saric especially, as they got more and more productive, Ben Simmons got more and more comfortable.
Sean, what's your thoughts at the Sixers? What's Coach Brown telling the team, in the locker room as they prep for the game tonight to mentally, what's their approach?
Yeah, I think it's we got to win a game. That's what we have to do. We got to win a game, and you guys are talking about pressure, and I think that's a good way to think about it, that there's probably not that much pressure in this game. I think that changes, though, if this one comes up a win. So if I'm Brett Brown, that's how I approach it. Let's get this game. We can't play three of them at a time here. Let's play this one. We've gone on 3-game winning streaks before, and that's what we have to do is we have to have a 3-game winning streak. So let's go out and let's win the first one.
Now, you talked to Ryan Odom about that, they were the 16 that beat the 1. He's the head coach of that team. You actually talked about what it's like to try to win a game when no one expects you to win. Now, the Sixers need to win a series, not just one game. Yeah. But right. What kind of stories did he tell you about that?
Yeah, I thought, just when I was thinking about it yesterday, I thought, this is something that's never happened. I was thinking back, I grew up a Red Sox fan, so when the Red Sox came back against the Yankees down 0-3 in 2004, I remember what a big deal that was, and how that had never been done, and this was something that sort of changed everything. And I was like, well, what other, I was thinking, what other things are like that? And a 16 seed beating a number 1 seed was sort of a holy grail. That was something that in all the years of the NCAA tournament, it just hadn't happened until this year. And so I thought calling up Ryan Odom and kind of seeing, what his thoughts were, what his thoughts on this series were in terms of trying to do something that everybody else thinks is impossible because history says it is. He talked about, as I said before, sort of, you just approach it as if it's just because once the ball is in the air, it's just 48 minutes of basketball, and I think that was the way that he got his team to think when they were going against Virginia. I think that's the way the Sixers have to think going into this game.
And I think you're right, and I think Brett Brown and his staff has to look at the big picture, but keep the team focused on the game. And what I mean by that is, don't run from that statistic. Throw it out there. Let those guys know, hey, guys, it's 129, it's 130-0. Because if you're in the NBA, you are a competitive you-know-what. And when somebody tells you can't do something, that usually means get ready because you're going to get in a fist fight if you're going to try and score and go through me. So I think that you as a staff, you need to let them know, hey, this is nobody, I mean, even though Vegas is still thinking the Sixers are going to win the series, but realistically, as an athlete and as a coach, people are saying,
I don't know about the series. They're favored tonight. I don't know about the series.
All right, and you have to say to yourself, we can't worry about Game 6. We can't worry about Game 7. We just got to focus on this. However, do not think that this is some insurmountable task so that it will affect their game tonight. You want to keep it in a positive thought, and I think you're exactly right how you have to hit it. And sometimes in those situations, it's actually better playing on the road than it is at home because it's the us against them mentality.
Exactly right. And one thing that Coach Odom said that I really liked was, we weren't going out there to make history. We were going out there to win a basketball game, and that's what you got to forget all this. Just go out there and win a basketball game, and that's the way you got to look at it.
Yeah, we're talking with Sean Deveney here. Of course, the Sixers and the Celtics. You can listen to the game tonight, 8 o'clock on 97.3 ESPN. And, Sean, the Celtics are in an interesting spot. Now, we've asked the question to our listeners, who's the pressure on more? Most people go in Sixers in this because if they lose, they're done. But the Celtics don't have that star player, really, that if the game and the pressure starts to build on them, who do you think they turn to in that kind of – if this game is close late tonight, who is the Celtics guy that they turn to in the big moment?
Probably Al Horford, but, that's not necessarily a role that he's had over his career. So he's done a good job with that this year. They've gone to Terry Rozier, no question, but he's in his third year. This is really, he's really only been a starter for about, 2-3 months now. So, that might not be where your bread is buttered. But Al Horford, I think when they need something, when they need a bucket, when they need to sort of calm things down a little bit, Al Horford's the guy that they turn to, and he's been pretty comfortable carrying that load. Like I said, it's not something he typically has done in his career, but with this team, he has taken on that mantle. If
the Sixers win tonight in Boston, who's the guy we're talking about tomorrow?
I would think that judging by what I've seen, it would probably be Embiid. I think that like I say, they've been comfortable with letting him go in the half court. But they've been able to limit him enough that way. I think that he probably is due for a bit more of a breakout, and he's been in that sort of 7 for 15, just below 50%. I think he's probably due for a bigger game. I think he put some pressure on himself with with the T-shirt that he wore the other night. But I think he's always handled that kind of stuff pretty well. So I think it's going to be Embiid. I think he's going to look to try to carry him this game.
Yeah, you wrote about their Game 3 and what 5 easy steps that they absolutely blew that game. It was a fun piece at sportingnews.com that Sean wrote. And what were some of the adjustments that they made on top of McConnell that they didn't do in the first 3 games that make you feel like maybe they can get this at least? Maybe they don't win it, but maybe they can keep extending it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, like I said, I thought getting Dario Saric going was a real key for them because he had been MIA in the first 3 games of this series. So I thought that was a real key in terms of that. And I also thought that they did a much better job on Al Horford. That they've let they let too much run through Al Horford without a whole lot of resistance. And I think that they really did turn that around and try to keep the ball out of his hands. The Celtics are very good at getting Al Horford into mismatches, and then he can really become not just a scorer himself, but also a playmaker for other guys. Such a great passer. But the Sixers did a better job, I thought, of denying him the ball, sending a double team when necessary, at least to harass him a little bit. Not necessarily a hard double team, but getting a dig on him. He had 4 turnovers in the game. That's uncharacteristic of him, but I think a lot of that was what the Sixers were doing in terms of how they made adjustments, trying to keep the ball out of his hands to begin with. So that was something that I thought was pretty important in terms of getting that win.
Sean Deveney, Sporting News NBA writer. Real quick, couple hits on the other games. You had Houston win last night. Chris Paul with an epic performance last night, and they're going to play Golden State. That series is already starts Monday night. You can hear the Western Conference Finals all on 97.3 ESPN. Do we believe in Houston?
I believe they can make it a good series. Does that count?
Good series. All right. Good series. All right. I'm into that.
Right. And considering, don't forget that Golden State went through the Western Conference 12-0 last year. It's easy to forget that because it was so boring and so hard to watch. Just nobody put up any resistance. I think the Rockets will put up some resistance, and I think that'll make this a pretty fun series to watch. So I don't think that in the end that you look at the matchups, you look at what Golden State can do in terms of in terms of exploiting some matchups. I think in the end that the Warriors just have too much for the Rockets. So I do think that this is the Warriors series to lose, no question. But I think the Rockets, have enough to make it interesting. James Harden is going to have at least one or two big nights where he kind of wills them to a win. I think the Chris Paul angle is, him finally getting the Western Conference Finals. That's a good storyline, and you get some pretty good defenders on Kevin Durant and Trevor Ariza and PJ Tucker. So I think that series can at least be entertaining.
I had a gentleman tweet at me this morning that Chris Paul is one of the top 5 most overrated players in the history of the game. Is that fair?
No, that's not fair. I mean, come on. Overrated players in the history of the game.
Just making sure I'm not losing it. I'm making sure I'm not losing it.
No. I mean, look, I understand that he has not had a lot of postseason success in there. He does certainly bear a lot of the blame for that, but you could possibly say he is overrated within the context of how we see him right now. But in the history of the game, I think that's probably a little too much for me.
What is going to happen with Toronto and Dwayne Casey?
I don't know that they're necessary. I know there's all these rumors that they've already decided they're going to make a move. I don't know that that's true. This guy has done everything he can for that team as they've asked him to do things. Whether it was changing the offense and changing their whole approach this year, changing the approach he took with Kyle Lowry a couple years ago. I mean, there's been a number of things that he's done that have helped get this team to be a 59-win team. If you turn around and fire him, that's fine. What are you replacing him with? Where are you going next? And I just don't know that there's a coach out there who's all of a sudden going to change this dynamic. I think it's more about the players. It's more about, get DeMar DeRozan to learn to shoot a three-pointer. I mean, it's 2018. You've got to be able to do that. He may wind up taking the fall. I don't think it's as sure as some people are making it out to be. But I think in the end, I don't think that's going to have any bearing on this team. I think it's going to be more about, particularly the star players. Can they change their games? Can they raise themselves to where they are an elite team in the East?
Hey, who do you think Cleveland would rather face?
Probably Boston. I mean, I would say Boston just because they are down. LeBron just has a thing about going into the Boston Garden. I've seen it time and time again, and just ripping the hearts out of all 19,000 people in there. He's very good at that. So I'd say probably Boston. I think that the matchups are a little more favorable. I think the pace of play that the Sixers are able to establish, they're able to run with the Cavaliers much better than Boston would be able to. The Celtics are capable, as we've seen, of mucking things up, and Cleveland doesn't like to play that way. But I think that just having LeBron would be able to neutralize that. I think being able to run up and down with LeBron the way the Sixers can, I think that's probably something the Cavs would rather not do.
Real quick on the Celtics, Larkin is out. Big loss and not a big factor in the game tonight? Probably going to be out. Probably going to be out the series, by the way. Rest of it.
Yeah, right, and that is a big loss. Just, not that he's played great, just that they're so far at the end of the line in terms of especially point guard depth that you lose another guy. It's really tough. They just don't have anybody else. So yeah, it's a bigger loss than it should be, but that's only because he's their third string point guard and they're already down one as it is. So yeah, that's going to hurt a little bit for sure.
Sean Deveney covers the NBA, the sporting news at Sean Deveney on Twitter, and of course Sixers Celtics tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. The coverage begins at 8 p.m. You up there in Boston, Sean?
I am, yep.
Enjoy the game tonight. Should be an unbelievable crowd. We'll see how the Sixers handle it. Thanks for the time as always, pal.
Okay, guys, thanks.